What's going to be the U.S. connection with Israel, the war, the hostage situation in the upcoming days, weeks, months, and even years? Check out this clip with former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, where he gives an analysis that what his projection is going to be with how everything that's going on right now is going to unfold. But before you do that, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Check this out.
Former Secretary of State under Trump's first term and former CIA Director Mike Pompeo. Mr. Secretary, thank you for taking time. Let's get your reaction right out of Lucas's report there. First, the tariffs. So it's Mexico, Canada, and China. One of those is not the same as the others when you talk in terms of sort of what may be at play with the intention of the tariffs. What do you make of it?
It's great to be with you. Look, the tariffs make sense when you have an objective, and President Trump has always simply demanded fair, even, reciprocal trade, and he's trying to get that with the Mexicans, with the Canadians as well, and certainly, of course, with the Chinese Communist Party. So I'm hopeful he'll be able to achieve that. I think some of the risk of inflation that people talk about is likely overstated. Some of this will end up being absorbed by the producers, and to know exactly where the economic risk will fall is difficult to know in advance, but make no mistake about it, the tariffs are legitimate means of achieving an end. I hope we've made very clear to them our expectations so that we can go back and reduce tariffs, reduce subsidies in every one of these places, perhaps save for the Chinese Communist Party where there are multiple objectives that have to be completed, not just on trade, but on national security as well.
And in terms of the fentanyl, obviously precursors coming from China, then coming across our southern border with Mexico, certainly perhaps part of it?
Undoubtedly. You know, I remember this from the first Trump administration. President Trump made clear to Xi Jinping he needed those flows reduced. We got it for a time, and then it just has now wandered off over these last 4.5 years. How we have to get that back. This is decimating communities all across America, and the Chinese Communist Party has the capacity, the capability, Griff, to actually pull that off. They can stop this if they choose. They've chosen not to. We need to impose costs on them until they do.
Mr. Secretary, I want to turn to the Middle East. Obviously, great news today. More hostages, including Keith Siegel, one American, released today. We know there are 6 Americans that remain in captivity, 2 of which we believe are actually alive. What do you make of today's development and where this heads?
Well, it's never bad news when Americans come home. It is joyous. It is glorious. It is, for those families, it is unimaginable glee to see these folks return home. Having said that, I think in one of the early reports there were 138 Palestinians, terrorists, released. They'll commit terror again, so the risk to the next set of American families is very real. We need to make sure, importantly, Griff, that we continue to support the Israelis in their effort to decimate Hamas. They can never be in control, they can never be in charge, and they can never reorganize. And the Israelis also have to create space on their northern border. We'll have more hostages if we can't get the Hezbollah to be completely destroyed by the Lebanese armed forces and allow the Israeli people who still aren't living in their homes, Griff, have 70,000 people still can't go back to the northern part of Israel. We have to give the Israelis the capacity to do that, and I am sure Prime Minister Netanyahu is heartened to have President Trump as his counterparty to that and not President Biden.
Is that significant that that is going to be the first international visit, and what do you suppose is the goal there?
Look, I think it will reinforce the deep ties between our two nations and the great work that these two leaders did in building out what became the Abraham Accords in the first Trump administration. And then I'm sure each of them will want to talk about how it is they're going to get at the real root of this problem, the regime in Iran. How is it they're going to take out that regime in a way that gives Israel the security assurances it needs and then reduces the risk for America, right? If you put America at the front of your foreign policy, you don't want to send our young men and women to fight and risk their lives in the Middle East. And taking out the regime in Iran is a core part of making sure we don't ever have to do that to any American family.
And lastly, Mr. Secretary, I want to get your reaction to 6 Americans freed in Venezuela. Rick Grenell going down there, a big victory there. But then the president just a little while ago saying that Venezuela agrees to take back criminal illegal migrants, some of whom may be part of that Tren de Aragua gang members. What's your reaction to that?
That is all good news. Getting those folks home is fantastic news. Getting these violent criminals out of America, also really good news. What I don't know is what the trade for that was. That is, if there was some deal here. I hope we have not forgotten that Maduro is an illegitimate leader of the country, stole the election. Second, he's an indicted kingpin in the United States of America. And then finally, we shouldn't forget, he's in the control of the Iranians, the Chinese, and the Russians. He is mere puppet there in Caracas. And he is evil incarnate. He is bad for our region. And we need to make sure that we continue to use American power in the Western Hemisphere in a way that protects and puts America first. And we don't go down a path of thinking that we can negotiate with someone like Nicolas Maduro on the security matters that matter so much to the American people.
And just, we've got to let you go, Mr. Secretary, but it sounds just there's a bit of caution, trepidation in negotiating or dealing with Maduro, something that the previous administration didn't do. Do you have a word of caution for this current administration?
I remember how we handled it in the first one. We put enormous sanctions, real pressure on Maduro. We almost got him out of there. I hope that that will be the same model. I hope that will be a model that understands that if you can get to a great outcome for America, so be it. But the chance that Nicolas Maduro is going to do anything but the bidding of the Russians and the Chinese Communist Party and the Cubans seems very unlikely to me.
Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Mr. Secretary, thank you for taking time and joining us today.
Thank you so much. You have a good rest of your weekend.
Well, there you have it. What do you think about that? I'd love to hear in the comments below. And if you like this content overall, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Take care.